put into a state of fear and to be taught how worthless we are. Why do you think the social engineers teach you you're worthless? Because they know the truth. They're scared of you. A lot of people think of themselves as this little measly person who's powerless. But your soul, your intellect is powerful. And a good person compared to evil, an evil person is like a chicken-necked, 1-foot-tall, wart-covered goblin compared to a 10,000-foot bronze giant.
Right.
And it's time for people to understand that and to really ask yourselves, in this limited short life we have, in this amazing blessing that is consciousness, are we going to be active participants engaging corruption? And that's what's so wonderful when I do have events like this, to actually have a chance to interface with all of you. I mean, I can feel the energy, I can feel the love, I can feel the liberty, and I can sense and feel people who aren't cowards and who are not afraid to face the facts, people that don't lie to themselves, people who are not delusional, people who don't sit there like so much of the public and think they can make their own reality and buy into whatever snake oil they want. It is so good to be here with you tonight. All right, I've got a bunch of notes here, and I'm just going to start going through these points. You know, I wrote this up at about 4 o'clock this afternoon, as I usually do when I give a speech, you know, points and issues I wanted to get into. One of the big ones is just basic control, how the globalists control us, and the process we're in right now from converting to a quasi-free society to the greatest surveillance police state society the world has ever seen. And the first big issue is they're training us that everyone is a criminal except government. Everyone has no privacy except the government and corporations. No one has any dignity but the corporations and the system. And that's a lie. And you know, things that were unthinkable 10 years ago are now out in the open. We see these TV ads all over the country about kids, tattle on your parents, spy on them, it's the right thing to do. The Boy Scouts are training to take on disgruntled veterans, isn't it great? They had a drill with the Explorer Club, the Yugen, you know, took out 10 veterans who wouldn't turn their guns in. New York Times. I mean, this type of stuff is right out there in the open. And they're taking the public, the police, everybody, and just slowly acclimating us to accept it. And, you know, I mean, I'll tell a story here in my notes. I flew in Friday night, and our plane was delayed, so I got here about 11 o'clock at night in San Francisco. And, well, first off, I was in Austin, and we get there, and I go through the checkpoint, and a couple of the TSA people are listening, and I say, hey, how you doing? And I talk to one of them, and I say, you know, they're about to put naked body scanners in here, and the government had lied about that and said, oh, there's no radiation dangers. Now they admit there are. And, oh, we don't save the naked images. Now they go, oh, we save them all. And it's going in your courthouse. Again, just lying. I mean, if your neighbor lied to you this much, why would you trust anything they said? But government doesn't, you trust them. So I went to the TSA people. Then our plane was delayed a couple hours. So I'm sitting there, and I watched these TSA guys, 3 of them, go around to all the gates, the 4 or 5 gates where I was at. And I watched them just randomly pick out, got to be an 85-year-old woman on a walker. That's Al-Qaeda. Yeah, swab her and do all this. And then I watched them search other people, and I watched them laughing. These TSA guys, you know, 6, 7 years ago were taking it serious. They knew this was a complete joke. I mean, they knew. They knew that there weren't any terrorists. There wasn't anybody trying to blow up the plane in Austin, Texas. They knew this was a joke. And I actually went over and talked to some of them, and they didn't know who I was that great, but they were like, yeah, we're just doing our job. But the issue is, the fact is, 5, 6 years ago, I got irritated by being searched. You know what's scary?
Mr. Stinky Feet.
Yeah, I'll tell Mr. Stinky Feet if you want. I'll tell you what's scary, is that now, you know, even Alex Jones, who's conscious of all their manipulation. No, I'm not. I'm just like everybody else. I'm powerful, but I'm also weak. Yeah, it's a mix of that. It's like walking the dog now. It's like getting the mail out of the mailbox, to take my shoes off, to take my belt off, and submit to all of this. And that's what the system's doing. It's acclimating all of us to accept the equivalent of going into gas chambers. What they do at the gas chambers, or running people into pits in Russia or Germany before they kill them. Take your shoes off, take your stuff off, take your belt off, take your valuables off, go in here. And the TSA people, they have no clue. Have they done decades of research into psychological warfare conditioning operations? They're compartmentalized. These men and women aren't bad. They're getting $15 an hour. It's just a job for them. They believe Al-Qaeda wants to kill us. They don't know it's Al-Qaeda, though more and more ask for my autograph, so they do. Literally, it happens almost every time. I could be in Montana, LA, you name it. And here they are, and they're hurting people through these systems. You're taking your shoes off, you're taking your belt off, you're answering questions, and it's always more. Oh, there was a shoe bomber, got to take your shoes off. Oh, there was an underwear bomber, we got to naked body scan you. Oh, we got to ask you these questions. And I remember already seeing what they were doing 9 years ago, but then about 2 years later, what I'd already thought, seeing total confirmation, because these criminals love to brag. I was watching Governor Ridge, the head of Homeland Security, and he was on C-SPAN, and he said, we're going to have checkpoints at malls. We're going to have them on the highways. We're going to have them to go into work. He said, we're going to search everybody, and you're going to have a national ID card to have a job, and America is going to be like one big, giant airport. This is in 2003. And he said, we're going to have TSA checkpoints on the streets of America. Now they're called Viper teams, and they're everywhere. They're in Dallas, Texas. They're in Boston. They're in Los Angeles. And they are running people through the scanners and naked body scanners. And when you think about these TSA workers, I've had radiologists on the radio show to go over what is put out by these. The fact is, it's 20 to 50 times, depending on which machine, the radiation they'd previously said. And now they've announced they have at least 500 mobile vans with private contractors, and they give them to police departments as well, driving around with powerful X-ray backscatter machines with at least 10 times the power of a chest X-ray, shooting it through our homes. Think how far America's come. That they're on the news going, yeah, there's 500 vans driving around looking through your walls. Whatever happened to the Fourth Amendment? Think about that. And that the people running those machines aren't under federal laws for radiation, like somebody who's a radiologist at a dental office or a hospital. And they've got these people sitting in these vans. They're the ones that are going to die. I mean, if you get X-rayed a few times with a van driving down the street, it's going to hurt you, but not that bad compared to the people who are being given a death sentence. These people running these X-ray machines at the airports, the people running the big high-powered X-ray machines driving all over our country, the 500 vans we know. And that's the methodology of the globalists. They are testing soft kill to see if they can deploy things like depleted uranium the troops are using, or Agent Orange in the 60s and 70s, to see if they can deploy these radiation systems, to see if they can get away with putting it out, it killing people, and then the media just basically says, oh, it's no big deal. Kind of like 4 years ago, Gardasil supposedly protects women from human papillomavirus. But you read the insert, boy, you find out a lot reading vaccine inserts. I recommend you read it. And it said, this doesn't protect you from human papillomavirus or cervical cancer. And it only covers 4 to 6 of the hundreds of strains. But in studies and in trials, it does kill some people. And in the trials, all these women died. And then I see the local newscast all over the country. People send me on YouTube, where my daughter was a 12-year-old cheerleader. We gave her the shot, and for 4 days, blood poured out of every orifice, and she died. And the doctors say, yeah, the shot kills you, but it's worth it because it might save somebody from cancer. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Salk was the head of the World Eugenics Society. We've got videos of him laughing about the SV40 cancer viruses on record they put in polio shots. There's a reason cancer's up by over 2,000 to 3,000%. And all we got to do is face the horror that they're doing this to us. And then we've got to face the horror that Bill Gates, whose dad headed up Planned Parenthood, the eugenicist, is on record, getting up on TED TV and saying, here's the equation, we got to cut the human carbon footprint, we got to get rid of most of the people. And we've got to face the horror that he's funding vaccine programs worldwide that is doing this to people. And we've got to stand up to this little smiley-faced demon when the media talks about what a great humanitarian he is and how much he cares about us, and recognize that he's a little Adolf Hitler. Hey, I'm going to say this again. I don't care at the end of the day if somebody kills me, except I want to continue my work. I'm way beyond fear. Because when you actually dig into the confirmed, I mean, everything I told you here, you can just search the term and see videos of them admitting it. That's how bold they are. When you realize that what I've told you is the truth and beyond, it's worse than I'm saying, many-fold, by many levels. When you realize that eugenics started in England, became all-powerful in the United States. In 35 states, they sterilized whoever they wanted, even into the 1980s. They took babies at birth that were born in government institutions and drowned them, or did medical experiments on them. It's all public. When you realize that, you understand just how out of control this system is. And it doesn't matter if you're a school teacher or in the military or a police officer or anybody else. You are a piece of trash to the globalist. And I know there are people here that are doubters tonight. There are undoubtedly FBI people here tonight. There are undoubtedly private contractors here tonight. And all I ask is that you have the courage to go search the terms and the information I put out tonight and to find out it's true. Yeah. But I want to briefly speak about Eric Blair, a.k.a. George Orwell, because Eric Blair came from an elite family, an intellectual family in England. He was sent as a young man to India to be a part of the imperial police, suppressing hundreds of millions of Indians, just a few thousand British. And he was sent there, and he didn't like the immoral things he did to Indians in India. So he said, well, the communists are against this. So he went and joined the communists and fought in the Spanish Civil War. Then he found out how corrupt they were, so he wanted to fight Hitler. So he went to work as a propagandist for the BBC during World War II. And so his character in 1984 is Winston Smith. He's the guy at the Ministry of Truth. And Orwell talked about this. He wrote essays on it. I'm not telling you what he thought his book was about. I'm telling you what he said about it. And at the BBC, he discovered that Hitler had been funded by the British and U.S. government. Hitler didn't work for the U.S. and British government. He'd been funded. These guys are smart. They had set up an enemy to then build up their power structure against him and to take control. And George Orwell talked about crime stop. Crime stop. The term doublethink and all the rest of it. But the crime stop was, he was in the party. 90% of the population of Airstrip 1, this fictitious 1984 Anglo-American tyranny. And Orwell wrote later that he believed this is what was actually going to happen. It just happened a little bit late. And he wrote in the book about Crime Stop, where members of the secret police, members of the propaganda corps, when Big Brother would get up there and announce, we've always been at war with East Asia, and then the next day, Big Brother would say, we've never been at war with East Asia. It was the smartest people, not the dumbest, but the smartest, who knew how to flip it around in their mind, who knew how to make excuses for it. Oh, well, he said we were always at war with East Asia, but now we've never been at war with East Asia. It was the mark of an inter-party member that they were able to rationalize what they were doing. And I've had special forces commanders on, I've had former top CIA analysts on, I've had former heads of state on. And when you confront them with, well, it's on the news, our government grows the opium, and they say, well, I just can't face that. I know it's true, but I just can't face that. Well, Anwar al-Awlaki, when I had Colonel Anthony Schaefer on Friday, I said, well, Anwar al-Awlaki number one in Al-Qaeda right now. He's in secret Pentagon meetings, and he runs all the attacks, and it's clear the Pentagon's staging these attacks. And, the Pentagon, you admit, blocked you from killing bin Laden back in 2001, a month before. He said,